If your autistic child can solve a math problem with objects in front of them but completely freezes when the same problem is written as a sentence, you are not alone. We went through exactly the same thing with our son, and at first, we did not understand why simple word problems caused so much stress. Our son could count toys, add blocks, and even solve visual math tasks. But the moment a worksheet said something like, "Emma has 3 apples and gets 2 more apples," he shut down. We learned that for many autistic children, the challenge is not the math itself. The challenge is translating language into mathematical meaning. Before we continue, subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/@neuroparenting-B4P. We share practical strategies, honest parenting experiences, and support for families raising neurodivergent children, so no parent feels alone in this journey. One of the biggest difficulties with word problems is that autistic children are often processing several things at the same time. They are trying to understand the language, identify important information, ignore unnecessary information, remember the numbers, and decide which mathematical operation to use. That is a huge cognitive load. We noticed our son often focused on the wrong part of a sentence. If a story problem mentioned cats, trains, or colors, his brain sometimes became more interested in those details than in the mathematical relationship itself. Other times, he interpreted the language very literally. Phrases like all together, left, or shared equally were confusing because they sounded abstract and inconsistent. Another challenge was anxiety. The worksheets looked overwhelming. Too much text on the page immediately triggered stress. And once our son became anxious, his processing ability dropped even more. We realized we had to teach the skill differently. The first thing that helped was separating the language from the math. Instead of starting with full written problems, we started with very short spoken situations combined with visual support. We physically acted out the problem while using simple and repetitive language. For example, instead of reading a long sentence, we placed 2 toy cars on the floor and said, "You have 2 cars. Dad gives you 1 more car." Then we paused and asked, "How many cars now?" Once he answered correctly, we introduced the mathematical formula slowly beside the objects. Another methodology that helped was using visual symbols consistently. We created small cards with plus signs, minus signs, and equal signs in different colors. Our son began recognizing the symbols visually before fully understanding the written formulas. Color coding reduced confusion and made the relationships easier to process. We also learned that autistic children often benefit from predictable sentence patterns. So instead of constantly changing the wording, we use the same structure repeatedly. For addition, we always said, "Start with this, add this, now how many?" For subtraction, we used, "Start with this, take away this, how many left?" Predictable language reduced cognitive overload. Now, let us share 3 practical examples that worked for us. The first example is something that can work very well in a school environment. One teacher used laminated problem translation boards. On the left side was a short word problem with pictures. In the middle was a section for identifying important numbers. On the right side was a space to build the mathematical formula. For example, the problem said, "Liam has 4 pencils. His teacher gives him 2 more pencils." The teacher highlighted the important numbers using colored markers. Then our son physically placed number cards onto the board. 4 plus 2 equals. What made this effective was that the teacher broke the task into small, predictable steps. First read, then find numbers, then identify whether something is added or removed, then build the formula. Instead of solving everything mentally at once, Our son processed each part separately. The teacher also reduced visual clutter. There were no unnecessary decorations or extra text on the worksheet. For many autistic children, simple layouts improve focus dramatically. The second example is how we worked on this skill at home. We stopped using traditional worksheets at first because they caused immediate frustration. Instead, we turned translation problems into storytelling games using our son's favorite toys. Our son loved dinosaurs, so we created tiny dinosaur stories together. We might say, 3 dinosaurs are sleeping in the cave, 2 more dinosaurs walk inside. Then, we physically moved the dinosaurs while asking, what math sentence matches this story? At first, we did not even expect him to say the full formula. Sometimes he only pointed to the plus sign card. Sometimes he arranged the numbers physically without speaking. We accepted all forms of communication because the goal was understanding, not perfect verbal performance. Something else helped us tremendously. We gave extra processing time. We learned not to rush with questions like, "Come on, you know this." Our son often needed 10 or 15 seconds to organize his thoughts before answering. Once we stopped pressuring him, he became much more willing to participate. We also practiced identifying clue words during calm moments. We created simple visual cards with words like more, together, left, and shared. Then we paired them with matching mathematical symbols repeatedly through play. Over time, our son started connecting the language patterns to the formulas more automatically. The third example is how we integrated these skills into daily life. This was probably the most powerful method because it removed the pressure of formal learning completely. At snack time, we created little verbal problems naturally. We might say, "You have 3 crackers and mom gives you 2 more crackers. How many crackers now?" Then, we let him physically count and build the matching formula using magnet numbers on the fridge. During grocery shopping, we ask questions like, "We already have 4 apples in the cart. If we add 2 more apples, what does that make?" During bath time, we counted toy boats. During walks, we counted dogs, bicycles, or flowers. What mattered most was making the math visible and connected to real experiences. Abstract worksheets became much easier once our son understood that formulas simply describe things happening in the real world. One thing we wish we had understood earlier is that translating word problems is not only a math skill, it is also a language processing skill. Many autistic children understand numbers better than spoken or written language. That does not mean they are bad at math. It means they may need extra support connecting language to mathematical concepts. We also had to stop expecting immediate generalization. Just because our son understood one type of word problem did not mean he automatically understood a slightly different version. He needed repeated practice with small variations before the skill became flexible. And honestly, some days were still hard. There were days when our son became frustrated after only a few minutes. On those days, we learned to stop early instead of pushing through. Protecting emotional safety mattered more than finishing a lesson. Something else that changed our perspective was realizing that progress often looked invisible at first. Sometimes it felt like nothing was working. Then suddenly, weeks later, our son would independently build a formula during daily life without help. Those moments reminded us that learning was happening slowly underneath the surface. If you are struggling with math word problems at home right now, please know you are not failing. Many neurodivergent children need visual support, repetition, extra processing time, and emotionally safe learning environments before these concepts begin to click. Subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/@neuroparenting-B4P. We share real experiences, practical parenting strategies, and support for families raising autistic and neurodivergent children. You are not alone in this journey.